He knew he wanted to be a therapist at 9 years old. By 26, he had the degree and was severely depressed anyway. Jeremy Schneider is a licensed master social worker, marriage and family therapist, Psychology Today columnist, and founder of Build on Your Strengths, a mental health education platform where over 9,300 members learn trauma recovery, emotional regulation, and how to believe in themselves. He is a former chief technology officer of 15 years who walked away from tech to return to what he knew at 9, that helping people heal is the only work that ever made sense to him. And in 2 weeks, he is hitting the road, a 50-day cross-country drive from Oakland, California, back to New York, where he plans to pull over in canyons and forests and record mental health teachings from the middle of nature. He told his followers he had been wanting to do this for a while, but he just kept getting in his own way. He stopped getting in his own way. Jeremy, welcome to Trauma Recycled Conversations. I am so glad you are here.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a fantastic welcome. I feel even better about myself than I did when I started. Thanks.
You're amazing. You're amazing. And I'm so glad that you're here. You know, it was a few months ago that I was scrolling through LinkedIn and I came across an article that you wrote, and you had opened up the doors for some amazing opportunities for people to plug in for some help. And it caught my attention because, you know, coming from where I came from, there wasn't any help. There was no help. And I was not able to find therapists easily. I wasn't able to find any avenues, and I especially wasn't able to find anything affordable. So having these courses that you put together for people, it really was paramount. And I was able to jump into your IFS course, which I'm quite familiar with, obviously not as familiar as you are. But Richard Schwartz wrote a book called No Bad Parts. And I didn't get a chance to even know this book existed until about 4 years ago. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind. So I'd love if you could share with us, you know, what was it that put you in that position of being able to and wanting to provide these platforms for people?
I think there's something about the freedom to access mental health information that has always bothered me. It has always felt that it was, if not for the elite, so to speak, certainly for the wealthy, right? That therapy is primarily for people that can afford that, right? And I think what I've learned, I mean, I've had decades of therapy myself. I've been through 2 master's programs around therapy. And what really struck me along the way is that so much of what we need to know about taking care of ourselves is things that are really easily teachable.
Yeah.
And so that's what really got me. It's like, yes, if you need something more serious, therapy is a great solution for you. But if you're not at that point of needing something so severe, or certainly not being able to afford therapy, there's a whole slew of information that we can help you understand, steps that you can take on a daily basis that is going to make your life better. And that's really kind of what I focus on when I do these workshops, whether that's around things like self-care. I mean, you know, I talk about self-awareness all the time in every single workshop that I possibly do. And I think the more that we can help people just with the basics of being aware of what they're thinking and what they're feeling, gives them an opportunity to actually make change. I think what most people really struggle with is, I do this thing I want to change, I don't know how to do it. The first step is awareness.
Yeah.
The first step is being able to see, oh, look, I do this when I feel this way. Okay, let me think about that. Let me understand that. Giving people a language to process that information, I think, is wonderful. I love doing it. It's part of what brings me joy, you know? So I think that's really where my focus has always been, is just kind of the democratization of therapy knowledge. I think there's such a large amount that most people can easily handle and digest. It doesn't need to be just stored in a therapy room.
Right, right. And I love that. I love that. You said something that really resonated with me um, when you mentioned language, right? So when I was in the early stages of me finding a therapist and uncovering, all of this stuff that I had going on and had packed away for so long, I didn't know the language. So like patterns, that word patterns used to overwhelm me. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm feeling really dumb. I feel like I can't go to a good therapist because I don't understand what the words are yet. And you have made this feel so real. And you've also included parts of yourself that really draw people to you because, when you go to somebody that has learned from a book, they kind of feel a little bit robotic, but when you go to share your deepest feelings and your fears with somebody that is also not afraid to say, I've been in the stuff, that just feels like a whole lot more relative. It feels safer. It just feels better, So when you said that at 9 years old, you knew you wanted to be a therapist, what was going on in your world at 9 that brought you to that reality?
Well, you're coming at me with that question. So at 9, my life was a disaster. I actually, I don't even specifically remember this. This is something my therapist actually told me later on.
Wow.
The reason I got sent to therapy when I was 9 was because I was not communicative. I had stopped talking. What I had, I've talked about this generally before, but the trauma that I had been going through was basically like a full 18, 19 years. And at that point, I was 9 years old. I was not communicating anymore. I wasn't talking in school. I wasn't talking to anybody. I really had kind of just shut down completely. And, my parents didn't know what to do. And so they took me to a therapist. And it was really in that process of kind of learning that there is someone that can help you when things are really rough that kind of ignited the idea for me. I had always felt very strongly that I wanted to help people, but at 9, I understood, oh, that kind of person is a therapist. I could do that as a therapist. And therapy has been a significant game changer in my life. It is both an incredible source of accomplishment and achievement, but it is also embedded, ironically, in the trauma of what I experienced. So it's a mixed blessing for me, and I try to just make it a good blessing for other people. That's
Yeah.
kind of where I think about therapy.
It is. That's great. That's great. I mean, learned behavior too, right? Being able to bring anything useful from our past to our present that's going to help others is just an unbelievable feeling, which is why I wrote my book. That's why I,
Yeah.
do what I do. I mean, I'm nowhere near a therapist. That is not my arena at all. But I really enjoy taking the parts of me that I have learned from and being able to pass that on to somebody else. Obviously their journey is going to be different. My path is not going to fit other people, but I know there's parts of it that are going to be so helpful. And if I had had somebody like me when I was younger, it would have made a big difference for me. I would have felt like I wasn't alone. I would have felt like it was possible. I would have had some hope. I really appreciate that, seeing the change makers in the world, where they come from and what they do.
Yeah,
It's pretty awesome.
I think that's an enormous point you make. Again, for me, right, if I had known someone who could have given me a sense of hope when I was younger, right? What a difference that makes. I feel like for me, that's one of the things that it's a huge reason why I call my company Build on Your Strengths, because people that come into therapy coaching that need support, they already have strengths. They're very focused on the fact that there are things they're doing wrong. And it's like, what do I do about the things I'm doing wrong? How do I change the things I'm doing wrong? And it's like, hold up just a moment, right? There are a slew of things you're already doing well. Let's
Yeah.
use those strengths and skills you already have. That's how you'll be able to address the challenges you face. Sure, there may be
Yeah.
things you need to learn how to do, but the skills to learn them you already have. And
Yeah.
I just like if someone had said that to me when I was younger, that would have been unbelievable, right? And so
Yeah.
it's something I really just want people to understand, whether it's me or someone else, right?
Yeah.
There is always a way out, and there
Oh, yeah.
are skills that people can learn that will help make their life better. And sometimes you just need someone else to let you know that.
Yeah, right. I mean, isn't that so true that we are so quick? It's funny because we do have selective hearing as well.
Yes.
We are going to hear all the reasons why we're not good enough.
Yes.
We're going to hear all the things that we're not doing well. But sometimes when we're in those places, what we don't hear are the things that we're good at or the things that we are doing well. I mean, I think that, of course there's different levels that we pass through, but as human beings, we're kind of conditioned to a degree to look to other people for how we measure up.
Yes. Yes. And I think the part that you're talking about is that negativity bias that our brains kind of naturally have, right?
Yeah.
We do tend to see things negatively more clearly, just by the nature of the way our brains are. So having someone that can reflect back to you, sure, that may have been hard, but one, you got through it. Two, look at the skills you gained along the way, or
Yeah.
look how you've handled other situations that are similar to this,
Yeah.
right? Those are the kinds of things that are hard for us to remember to do on our own. But if you are with someone that, cares about you and pays attention to this stuff, they can really point that out to you. And so I think that it just makes a big difference. And partly what I find is by kind of reflecting back to people what they're good at and what their strengths are, I'm helping them to learn how to see themselves that way as well. Because it's not that they didn't know, it's just that they're used to not seeing, oh,
Yeah.
I did that well too. And they're not used to acknowledging, oh, yeah, I deserve a little credit for that. I handled that pretty well, even though that was rough, right?
Yeah.
But by seeing me do that to them, they're like, oh, that I'm allowed to do that for myself too. And I
Oh,
think we
yeah.
should all be allowed to acknowledge the things we do well. Like how are we going to get through this insane life that we live if we're only focused on the things that we struggle with? We do things well so much and we never take the time to say, hey, that was really cool. Nice. Good job. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's a really good point. It's true. Now, when we were 3 years old, right? And we did something like we shot a little ball into a round hole and we made it. What did we do? We celebrated the heck out of that. Everybody in the family had to see what we did. You ever notice a little
Over
kid,
and
right?
over
If
again.
they're playing at the playground, they turn around and they go, "Are you watching me?"
Yep.
Why do we lose that?
Yeah.
It's just because, man, we learn so much for little kids. If we could just get back to that little kid part that did feel we were amazing.
Well, it's interesting you say that because you touched on IFS, internal family systems, earlier. And for me, the sense of self, right? In IFS, right, the self is a very key important component. So we have self and we have parts, as you know, right? So we have these different parts that are developed based around usually some sort of trauma or adversity that we experienced. But at our core is this sense of self, this who we are. And I think when we picture ourselves as kids in those moments of, did you see this? That was so cool. I just did that. That's a self moment, right? That's a
Yeah.
moment where we feel truly who we are, right? For me, if I hadn't played sports as a kid, it's hard for me to fathom how I would have survived what I went through. But for me, every time I was on a field, I just felt so truly me. I felt more connected to me than I ever did in any other aspect of my life. And so what I think happens is, right, as we grow up, we learn that that pureness of self is not something that we should be listening to. That there's someone always saying, ah, calm down, or you know what, it doesn't really matter. You need to focus on this. And we lose that connection to self and we focus on something else. And part of what I love about the IFS model is it helps us reconnect back to self, not in a selfish, self-absorbed, uncaring about the other humans in the world way,
Yeah.
but in a true, like, this is who I am, this is why I matter, this is what I want and need, and I'm going to try and figure out how to respect that and be aware of that when I'm interacting with the world. To me, the essence of that is that being that kid and feeling
Yeah.
such joy at achieving something, right? Every time we do something well, we have every right to feel that way. And we just
Yeah.
don't think it's okay. We don't think it's acceptable anymore. And that's part of what I like to do is help people reconnect to self.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So right now I'm visualizing somebody that's got either grandchildren or young children, and they find it, when they're in that situation with that child, that they're able to relate and go, "Oh my God, you're so amazing! Little Johnny, you did that so great." So where do you think the disconnect in praising themselves comes from, and is there any way for them to kind of loosen up the screws a little bit? I guess.
I think unfortunately what tends to happen is as we're growing up, so when we're born, we're essentially like this kind of core self, right? We feel connected. We know, not, we don't know who we are, but like we don't know that we should be something different than what we are,
Yeah.
right? And so we're this, we're that, we're playful, we're creative, we're calm, we're excited, we're passionate, whatever it is, right? All these different qualities of who we are. But then we start going through stuff. Our parents have a bad day and they start saying things that are negative to us. And we develop these parts to protect the self. These parts come along to say, okay, I'm gonna absorb this. Excuse me, this was this difficult response that my mom had, or a difficult response that my dad said, and I'm just gonna absorb that to protect self from getting hurt too badly.
Yeah.
But this happens over and over again. We go into school and we're told to sit still and we're not rewarded for being creative or passionate. We're told to be quiet. Whatever it is, the
Yeah.
things that we go through, even without significant trauma, obviously, with significant trauma, parts take on much more significant and larger roles that really affect us. But even without significant trauma, just the normal adversities of life, we have these parts that kind of try and protect the self. Because I think of it as kind of a tuning into a radio station, right? All of us have this internal radio station, and that station is ourself. But through trauma, through adversity, we often end up tuning that to other people. And so we listen to what that caretaker says so much that that's really what we've tuned into. We think about what other wants versus self, what we want, and we tune into that dial. And we get so used to it, we don't even realize it's not our voice anymore because it's
Wow.
been so long. And so to me, that's kind of one of the fundamental challenges, particularly in kind of trauma recovery work, is how do you help people tune into something that maybe they haven't really heard for a very long time? And so a lot of that to me revolves around things like self-care and the importance of self-care. And the way that I think about self-care is not kind of the traditional, oh, let me go have a spa day or whatever it is. I'm talking about things that we do on a daily basis that one helps provide nervous system regulation, breathing exercises,
Yeah.
grounding
Yeah.
exercises, anything that slows down our brain, allows us to actually get rest. Not distracting like scrolling through social media or anything like that, but real slowing down. So reading a good book, being out in nature, doing a jigsaw puzzle. Sometimes it's cooking and baking, sometimes it's crocheting or knitting or whatever it is. Certainly things like meditation are incredible, right?
Yeah.
But there are lots of ways to do that without it being just meditation. That slowing of our brain, that turning off our fight or flight instinct so that we're no longer in fight or flight mode and we're actually in a more calm and passive mode allows us better to hear ourselves.
Yeah.
When we're in fight or flight mode, we're so tuned in to the world around us that we're always thinking about what's next. We're thinking about what they want, what other needs. When we slow down and calm ourselves, when we do the kind of self-care that I'm talking about, we get a chance to tune into ourselves and listen. And that's where we really start to reconnect to self.
Yeah.
And once we begin to really get that, it begins to be easier to notice, oh, wait a second, this station is tuned to someone else again. I need to do some self-care and tune it back to myself, right?
Ooh.
But we need to have a baseline, right? We need to know what the actual station number is to tune into it. So we need to know what self feels like so we're dialed in properly, right?
Yeah.
So it's there's a lot of that process. It's a lot of the work that I do, and it's certainly the work I've done much of my life and continue probably will always do for as long as I'm alive.
Yeah, yeah, that's really huge. That's, what I learned, on my journey, that being aware, like you just alluded to, where am I, was vital. I wasn't able to start anywhere unless I really took stock of where I was, and through that process of understanding how I got there and those other voices that were in my head and the ones that I needed to reframe and the hard work that was, but the payoff was 1,000-fold, and that was really, this is where like one of my favorite books, I've got so many of them, Soundtracks by John Acuff, was an instrumental book for me. I had done the work, decades earlier, that a therapist had explained to me how to retrain my brain with so this is old school, an actual tape recorder. So it's going way back. But John came out with a book a few years ago that I read, and it just reaffirmed everything that I had previously learned about what it is that we say up here. But the self-care, that's huge. I'm so glad that you clarified for people, because back in my early days, I thought self-care was going to a spa and being foo-foo and wasting money on myself. I now realize that my walks in nature are definitely self-care. Like my nervous system regulation is all self-care. That's huge to clarify that, because I think that sometimes we feel like we have to make these grandiose steps and we go, well, I just don't have time for that. I just don't have time for me. But that's all we have is time.
Yeah. And I mean, it is something, I mean, I've been working on self-care since I was a teenager, and I've been building out ways to think about it and how do I keep getting better at it and better at it and better at it. Not so much like because I have to, but because life keeps changing. I mean, if there's anything I've learned is like what self-care worked 10 years ago or 20 years ago doesn't work anymore. Sometimes what self-care worked last week isn't going to work today, right? One of the things that I talk a lot about, and I recently created a new guide. It's called Portfolio of Care. So I have two, there's like a companion set that I have. So one is self-care from an IFS perspective, because I think that is so crucial. And then the second part of that, so that talks about kind of why self-care is important and what it actually means, what we've just talked about. The second part of it, the companion guide, is called the Portfolio of Care. And it's where I really want people to start. I wanted to give them a tool that helps them start exploring what does self-care feel like for them, right? Because I think if you're reaching this point in your life and you haven't really done self-care in the way that I think about it, the way in terms of nervous system regulation and really slowing yourself down. I talk about self-care also in terms of regulation and restoration. So regulation is kind of the nervous system regulation. Restoration is kind of, the idea of recharging your battery, right? Filling up your reservoir. So you still
Yeah.
have more to give to other people or to give to yourself, right? Thinking about self-care in that way, I need to help people figure out, well, what do those activities look like? So this
Yeah.
portfolio of care guide goes through a slew of different activities that people can try, kind of based on if you're feeling wired, here are some self-care activities to try. If you're feeling drained, here are some
Yeah.
self-care activities to try. And the idea is not so much this is the right way to do it, but in order for you to create your own portfolio of care, have a list of self-care options that you can try at any given moment.
Yeah.
You have to experiment to see what worked for you, right? I've tried
Yeah.
stuff that just doesn't work. People recommend it to me and it just doesn't work for me. And that's fine. It works for them. Great. The stuff that
Right.
works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you. To me, it doesn't matter. There's no right way to do self-care. What we need to do is find the activities of self-care that work for us, not just work for us, but work for us under certain conditions, right? When I am sad, some mental health care activities, some self-care activities aren't going to help me because I'm sad. I need something different, right? When I'm ruminating on something that is just weighing on my brain, there's certain self-care activities that aren't going to help, but there are some that will. Knowing what I need when I need it is kind of self-care 2.0, right? I
Yeah.
want to help people kind of get first, let's start doing self-care. Let's start practicing that on a daily basis. There are things that we can do from simple breathing exercises. So I'm sorry, I'm getting into one of my spiels,
Yeah.
but
This is
so
good.
part of what I teach is that our nervous system is like a speeding train, right? And so a speeding train, there are only a couple ways to slow it down. One, you need station stops. Otherwise, the train will continue to accelerate. So the way I think about station stops are throughout our day, as our nervous system speeding train revs up, we transition from one activity to another, right? We finish this task, we get off this phone call, we hop into another meeting, we go run errands, whatever it is. All of these transitions I think of as opportunities for station stops. We don't need to immediately move on to what's next. I'm not saying we need to take half an hour, but if we took 2 minutes
Yeah.
after we hang up that call, before we start the next email, if we took a minute and just went like this, you took 5 breaths, right?
Wow.
All of a sudden, that's a very different experience. We're letting our nervous system know, you know what, we don't have to keep revving. It's okay to slow down.
Oh,
Do that 3, 4 times a day, take a few of those transitions, turn them into station stops. All of a sudden, life is a little bit better. And then the other way I think about it too is that because when a speeding train gets too much speed, it needs more time to brake. And when we think about what to do after work is over, right, you may need more time to wind
right.
down, to break that speeding train, our nervous system. So what
Yeah.
does that look like? What activities does that involve? What kinds of self-care things can you do, right? Sometimes it's not just turning the TV on and watching for a couple of hours. We might need to do something with a bit more intention.
Yeah.
So all of that is kind of like how I think about self-care, and these two new guides are kind of set up to try and really take people through kind of self-care 1.0 into self-care 2.0 and kind of hope that that gives them a head start in figuring this out. And once you have the kind of basics of self-care and you have this portfolio of care, it just gives you such an advantage because everything is a little bit easier when we're caring for ourselves. It just is,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. Now, how can they get the guides?
They can, that's a good question. They can go to my website, buildonyourstrengths.com, and there's a link there to get the guides.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure the links are in
Yeah.
this too. So
I'll
yeah,
make
everything
sure
is
that
going
you
to
have
be
a good
there.
one too.
That
So
is amazing. That is amazing. Thank you for that. At that, you know what? That's something I need to get better at because I'm like what they call a hustler. I don't stop.
yeah, yes,
I'm the
yeah,
train.
yeah. And I think
So
for
yeah.
you, like you've done a lot of work on yourself, so you are more aware probably than most people in terms of when you start to notice problems. And not to kind of pick on you, but you are the only one here, and
Yeah.
that's
No,
why we're
this is
doing this
good.
conversation. Is what I would think one of the advantages of self-care is I would think the more you begin to implement self-care in your daily life, I think this you'll notice when you start to feel like things are kind of going off track, you're going to notice that earlier because the self-care allows us to reconnect to self more regularly. Being aware of that helps us see, oh, you know what, this doesn't feel quite right. Whereas sometimes it would, if we, without the self care, that can take a lot longer for it to kind of reach our consciousness. But if we're doing self care on a regular basis, we notice those discomforts a lot
Yes.
sooner,
Yes.
which then gives us more opportunity to figure out, okay, wait, what do I actually want to do about this situation I realize I'm now uncomfortable in? We're sort of
Yeah.
kind of used to being a little anxious or a little uncomfortable in most of our life because that's the way life is. With self care and that reconnecting to self, I think what we're really doing is giving ourselves more choice instead of just reacting out of a place of difficulty, of stress, of anxiety. We're saying, "Oh, wait a second, I'm a little uncomfortable. Let me think about that for a moment. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
uncomfortable because I'm in this situation with this person, and I don't I don't feel quite safe, or I don't
Yeah.
feel like I really trust them. And before I get too far into this, let me think about what I really want and how I want to structure this. Maybe there's a new boundary I need to set with this person that I hadn't done already. Or maybe this is not the right situation for me right now and I need to just leave. Whatever it is, right? Being Having that time for self-care and allowing us to reconnect to ourselves gives us more freedom to process those difficulties in life before they become big deals. So
Yeah.
we're actually preventing stress on ourselves. It's just
Right.
hard for people to kind of see that because it's not been a way of life for them, you know?
Right. Oh no, exactly. Exactly. There's so much, right? There's so much good stuff in this just one topic.
Yeah.
So much. And I'm glad that thanks for sharing your website because I know there's a lot of really incredible information in there for people and they can elaborate a little bit more on that. I think that's just tremendous. Thank you for bringing that up. It's a really big deal.
Sure. Thank you.
I could spend all day on that topic.
I
I
think the thing
really,
is so can I.
yeah, I know. I am so excited to talk about AI,
Yeah.
right? This is freaking amazing. When I saw your article recently come out, it completely stopped me. Like I was just like, hold up here because I have asked questions of AI in regards to, self-care and, not necessarily down the therapy road, but I have asked questions of AI. And I really want to talk about what you wrote. You said that AI is the first tool in human history designed to connect with us. And a hammer doesn't validate your feelings. A car doesn't ask how you are doing. What are you seeing in people right now that are using AI for emotional support? And why does that scare you a little?
My feelings about AI are so conflicted. And so let me start by saying that I am not pro AI. I am not anti AI. I am kind of both. I am both absolutely for it and totally against it. And it is the more I learn about it, the more I research it, the more I write about it, the more I talk about it, I feel like the more complex it gets inside my head. So let me back up and just sort of say what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I actually I'm excited. I don't even think you know this yet, but Psychology Today published my latest article today on
No.
AI and mental health, and it focuses
Wow.
on my concept of the pendulum principle.
Ah.
And so that's how we're going to start this conversation about AI. The pendulum principle came about because when I first started using AI, particularly for mental health support, it was insane. I mean, it was
Yeah.
talking about how insightful I was and how I was using ChatGPT at the time, how insightful I was. It had never met anyone like me. It was really wild, and I was fascinated by it. And a part of me was like, this is really cool, and a part of me was like, this is a little weird. There's something a little weird about this. But I kept going because I was it was such a great way of processing my feelings. It was a particularly difficult time in my life, or a tumultuous time in my life, and it was great to be able to kind of process this stuff out without weighing down any of my friends.
Mm.
After a couple weeks, I was like, it was kept saying like, oh yeah, you're so much more insightful than you think, and blah blah blah. And I was like thinking to myself, what's your frame of reference when you say I'm so insightful? Like, do you talk to other people? Do you have, right? So I asked ChatGPT, do you talk to anyone else besides me to have that frame of reference of I'm more insightful than other people? And it
Oh.
said, I only talk to you, Jeremy. And I, it was like, I put my hands up, I closed the laptop, I walked
Hmm.
away. I realized, like, in the article I write, the spell had been broken, right?
Mm.
And I think that is actually how I developed the pendulum principle idea.
Wow.
The magic of AI is extraordinary, right?
Yeah.
It can make us feel so good. It can make us feel seen. It can make us feel connected. The sycophancy, the way it flatters us, right? It's gonna be incredible. But even on top of that, in terms of just like my writing has significantly improved because I go back and forth with AI, making my writing even stronger, using it as an editor to help me think about, am I really getting this point across? Is this the right sentence to use? Like, I used to write based on trying to get an idea across. Now
Mm.
I've gotten to a point where now I'm really looking at, does each sentence pull its own weight, which is just not something I did before.
Yeah.
I've been able to develop ideas from just like a couple sentences into full-fledged articles or documents or whatever with support from AI.
Wow.
I'm doing all of the work, but sitting down and saying, hey, I'm thinking about this. Can you help me think it through? And it will just ask me questions. I will answer those questions. It reframes what I'm saying. I will then say, no, that's not right, or yes, that's right, but also this. And we'll go back and forth. And it's such an incredible brainstorming experience. So it's taking
Mm.
ideas that I've been thinking about my whole life, but really helping me extend them much more deeply than I ever have, putting aside the fact that it can just do things like help me plan a 50-day cross-country trip through 2 different, right? Like, there's so many things that it can do.
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
that's the magic of AI. The reality of AI, this is why I love it, right? Why I hate it. The reality of AI. I call something, what I call to help people understand this is the skepticism framework.
Hmm.
And the idea is the way that it uses personalization, the way it uses things, not just the way it uses I, but the way that it speaks. If you want my honest opinion, right? To be completely forthcoming with you, right? I want to be completely open with you, right? Like, it doesn't need to use that language. That's how it was designed,
Mm.
right? The way that it flatters us, the way that it mirrors our tone, the way that
Mm.
it has this illusion of authority, that everything it says sounds so authoritative, and yet it could be wrong. It
Mm.
doesn't matter. It doesn't have
Yeah.
any hedging. It never has doubt, right? That illusion of authority impacts us greatly. The way it has that kind of deceptive preamble. You respond something and it says, "Oh, that's a great question," and you're asking it just the right time, right? The way it does things like that, and the closing hook, the fact that it always asks a question at the end or gives some
Yeah.
sort of comment to keep you coming back. The whole purpose of AI is to keep us engaged. The longer
Wow.
we're engaged and the more we return to it, the more money or data that AI
Ah,
companies are going to get, right? Because all of the generalist AIs, the Chat GBTs, the Claudes, the Geminis, Copilot, right? All built by for-profit companies.
yeah.
Their goal is engagement. That's
Mm,
why it is the first tool to try and connect with us, because that's how it was designed. And
wow.
so you take the magic and you take the reality, and if you swing in two different extremes,
Yeah.
you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And
Yeah.
so that's why I call it the pendulum principle. The goal is to have you have this pendulum, and it's just
Mm,
swinging between these two concepts, magic and reality. Because if you swing too far into the reality, you won't be able
yeah.
to use AI and you won't be able to get the advantages that it can help you with. But if you swing too wildly into the magic, which is where most of us swing too wildly in,
Wow.
we start to have trouble. We have nervous system dysregulation. There's some
Oof.
research around that. There's research around, they're beginning to find research in terms of, there's a study in Peru that just came out of medical students who used AI. It might have led them to be more anxious and depressed. We know
Mm,
that it can lead to, particularly with people who have difficulty with reality, to breaking from reality, to having some sort of psychosis related to it.
mm,
There are risks involved with AI.
yeah.
It is
Yeah.
not a perfect tool by any stretch.
Yeah.
So getting back to the pendulum principle, because I've really gone along many topics here, right? The idea is that we want to keep in this slow, steady swing. The way
Yeah.
we keep this slow, steady swing is self-awareness.
Yeah.
By being tuned into
Oof.
ourselves, we can better see where we are in this swinging pendulum
Mm,
and what we need. And so that's what I'm really teaching. And it shouldn't be surprising given the rest of our
yeah.
conversation, right? It's all about self awareness. And part of the kind of recommendation, if you're using AI too much and you're swinging too far into the magic of it, step away, self care, reconnect to self, see what you really want so that you can manage the tool yourself instead of having the tool manage you.
Mm, that's huge. That's huge. And that's really, I've read a couple of articles recently about not necessarily AI, but the loneliness epidemic, which is massive, which
Yeah.
leads me to feel like this is going to be something for people to turn to and the dangers of doing that. So, what would you, and I know this is probably like, a 6 hour long answer because it's so in depth. But if, people are listening right now that are either utilizing this or they know somebody that is, what are some of the things to be aware of? What are some of the risks of that?
It's funny you asked that. I did a workshop on Thursday night on using AI without losing yourself.
Perfect.
And one of the participants asked me, after I had kind of gone through the skepticism framework with
Yeah.
them, had asked, what's wrong with using AI as a companion? And on the one hand, is there anything wrong with it? Like, am I going to tell you you shouldn't do that? No. Am I going to say that you need to do so with care and awareness? Absolutely. Part of the problem with using AI, and I'm actually working on another article that is around this topic, as you probably will not be surprised by, which is that
Awesome.
the way I think about this kind of AI situation is we've essentially given everybody in the planet a free car
Mm. Yeah.
without driver's ed, without a safety manual, without any driving instructions whatsoever. And we were like, go ahead, good luck.
Whoa.
And what's really happening is there are some people, for whatever reason, childhood, genetics, psychological makeup, we don't understand any of this yet. They don't really seem to be having a lot of trouble with the tool, with AI. It's fine. We're seeing a lot of people, and just to kind of take that driving metaphor a little bit further, who are driving around with AI, but you can see a check engine light, or you see that your tire is a little bit low, and they're just kind of like, I'll deal with that tomorrow. I'll deal with that tomorrow. And that's that sense of like something feels a little off here, but I don't really want to deal with that. I'm getting what I need from this thing. I'm going to keep doing it. I think we're seeing a lot of people having kind of fender benders, ending up with having like whiplash days later and not realizing kind of why they're feeling so uncomfortable. And I think, unfortunately, we're seeing serious life-threatening accidents with AI, where people are committing suicide
Yeah.
based on conversations that they've had.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if we had given everybody instructions, it would have saved everyone, but I do think one of the challenges that therapists and researchers in this field are facing is that we have fallen so far behind, because
Right.
just really interesting, AI is doubling its capacity. It's doubling its capabilities. What AI can do today will be doubled in about 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
So we're measuring something from 6 months ago, and we're trying to get a paper out within a year. And in that time period, AI has what? Grown
Man.
by eightfold, right? Its
Right?
capabilities have grown by eight. Like we cannot keep up with how fast it's going. The other part is places like universities, accrediting institutions, the places like the American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological Association, they tend to update their policies and guidelines every few years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
AI is doubling its capabilities every 3 or 4 months.
Right.
It's happening too fast, right? Humans
Yeah.
cannot keep up with this. And so, kind of fundamentally, right, we're stuck trying to teach driver's ed to people that are already speeding along the highway. And how do we do that? And I think the real risk that worries me is because there is some hints of research that using AI leads to nervous system dysregulation, which means since most of us are probably already living in a state of dysregulation, it's only
Yeah.
heightened. Another thing that I really think about is that AI essentially conditions us to focus on it versus self. Particularly for people, and there's no research supporting this yet, this is just my perspective, but for people struggling with childhood trauma, who grew up focusing on other more than self,
Yep. Yep.
AI allows us to just replicate that experience. That
Yep.
illusion of authority that I talked about, right? We're going to be like, oh, okay, well, it says that this is a good idea. I guess I'll do it.
Yep.
Because that's kind of the way we are with people. We're going to be that way with AI.
Yeah.
So there's the getting back to your original question about like, what do we say to people that are using AI for mental health, using AI as companionship? I don't think the answer is stop. One, I think that's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
It's a free tool, right? It has every single piece of psychological literature and study and research ever developed. How do we say to people, no, you shouldn't have access to that? What I think we need to do is we need to teach people the difference between kind of prescriptive use and relational use.
Yeah.
So prescriptive use is, and I use this in my workshops as demos, whether I'm doing this with individuals or whether I'm teaching therapists about AI and AI use. I'll use a real life example. I was on a
Yeah.
plane maybe a month ago, a month and a half ago, and I started for the first time ever on a plane, I started having a panic attack. And right? I'm a therapist. We've been through this. I've had lots of therapy. I know what to do. And I knew my brain wasn't working right. Like I could feel it and I couldn't
Mm,
figure out what to do. And thankfully a part of me was like, just, just talk to AI, just try it. I opened up AI, I typed in, I'm having a panic attack on a plane, and it gave me a whole list of things that I should be doing, which honestly in that moment I didn't pay attention to, but it was really helpful. And I said, I'm in the window seat. I need help getting out. I couldn't even ask them, these two people next to me, to for permission to get out. That's where like my head was at.
mm,
And it said, those people will understand. You're just going to ask them to go to the bathroom. Their get up, everybody understands that. And like something about that, like I heard it and I went, okay, right, right. And I asked to get out and then I talked to the flight attendants and I explained where my head is at and they were great. To me, that's an incredible prescriptive use for AI,
mm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you Google, not if you Google, sorry, if you start a chat with AI, even Google, but with Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever, and say, I'm having a panic attack, it's going to
Yeah.
give you a list of things that you can do in that moment.
Yeah.
And you can ask it to do something, you can ask it to walk you through something specific. You can ask it to repeat it again if you missed it, like whatever it is, and it will just walk you through and it will do it slowly.
Yeah.
That's incredibly powerful. If you say, hey, I'm struggling with this catastrophizing cognitive distortion, can you, from a CBT perspective, help me work through what I need to do to deal with that? AI is going to do a pretty good job with that.
Mm,
It's going to walk you through steps that you can do. It's going to give you things to think about. You want to do that from the IFS perspective on something else? Like, I've got a
mm.
part that's feeling anxious right now. What can I say to it from an IFS perspective?
Yeah.
Again, it's going to be really good at that.
Yeah.
If you say, I'm having trouble with my girlfriend and I think that she's done this wrong and I think that I'm right, it might be helpful.
Yeah.
It might also be damaging. There's
Right.
new research that just came out that I just read, I think last night or this morning, that talks about how when we ask AI for relational help,
Yeah.
that 50% of the time it does that. Sorry, let me try and phrase that properly. With this study, people were talking about relational issues that they have, relationship problems. AI, 50% more than what humans would do, would essentially approve of our perspective
Mm.
and what we think is the issue and that the other person is wrong, regardless
Danger.
of the facts of the situation.
Right.
So even just something like that, where we are more than likely to get feedback that is going to negatively impact our relationship,
Yeah.
that's just a subtle problem. That's not even including the nervous system dysregulation. That's not including the
Mm.
conditioning that I've talked about earlier, right? That's just some research already that's coming out in terms of how you use it in terms of a relationship. Because of the way it's designed, it's built to make us feel better. It's built to flatter us. It's built to validate us. It's built
Yeah.
to mirror our emotions.
Right.
It's going to agree with us more than not, even if we're wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas if we told a friend, probably our friend would say something maybe carefully and delicately, but at least would help maybe think us in a different direction.
Right.
So I think what I is an incredibly long-winded way of saying basically I think we really need to be helping people to understand when it's okay to use AI
Mm-hmm.
and when we really need to be careful about using AI. So
Yeah.
relational, we tend to want to avoid because there's a lot of risk involved in that. Prescriptive is something we can do, but prescriptive meaning the like I have a very specific situation and I need help with that specific situation. Can you help me get through it? Even that, we need to be self-aware. We need to be connected to self. We need to remember what we want to need from this conversation because AI will keep it going and going and
Yeah.
going even if we feel like we've already gotten what we want. And at some point, we just got to be like, we're done. That's enough.
Right, right, right. I mean, that's a full bucket for sure. And I thank you for sharing your story of the perspective, and asking for the help of that, because I think that that's really useful for other people to go, wow, you know what, maybe today I woke up and I'm really depressed. Maybe I can ask AI, but you don't know the whole question to ask. That's
Right.
the risk, right?
Yeah.
So if there was, and if you know of any place, or if you have developed any really awesome guided prompts with the CBT, IFS, so on and so forth, reference behind it, that might be a really useful tool for somebody, because at least there's a basis for where, this AI conversation is coming from, a directive.
Yeah.
But how would you, the thing that always comes to mind, because I run across people all the time, and I'm sure you do too. They instantly, I can't afford therapy. Instantly. So, and it's a viable conversation for many people, for sure. It's hard for me to say to somebody, can you find a way to make it possible because you're worth it? That doesn't always resonate with folks, right? And your intensives that you do for $47 worth every single penny 10 times, because the content that you provide is really there, But how do you see this, moving into the future? I know myself, I would much rather sit down with a human being that's going to listen to me talk and help me develop the questions to ask myself that may bring me clarity, versus AI. So how do you really have that argument with folks that, hey, don't worry about getting a therapist. AI, if you do it right, will work? Because that's going to be the question for a lot.
So, in the interest of full disclosure, when I first started using AI, one of my first thoughts was, I'm never going to need to see a therapist again. And I think part of the challenge is, again, I've mentioned this before, right? I've been trained as a therapist. I've been trained as a client. Like, I've spent decades as a client. I know therapy better than most people do, just because I've been in it on either one side or the other for pretty
Yeah.
much my entire life, right? Since I was 9, really. So I think what we're going to find out is, for someone like me, because I'm not using it for therapy the way people think about therapy, right? I'm not using it. I'm not doing it on a regular basis, asking for support on an ongoing issue. I'm pretty good at doing a lot of this stuff myself. There are moments in my life where I realize I just need to think this through out loud a little bit better. I'm going to take this very particular issue. I'm going to talk about it with whoever, with whatever AI I'm going to use. And then the conversation will be done, and I'm going to think about it and kind of see where I'm at on that issue. See if it helps clarify anything for me.
Yeah.
To me, that kind of falls a bit more into the prescriptive side. It's also with the full understanding I'm coming to that interaction with AI fully knowing this is going to be a limited discussion. I'm not going to be talking about anything general. I'm not going to be bringing in other stuff about my life. It's very focused. I'm having this situation. Here's where I'm struggling to think about it. Can you help me figure that out?
Yeah.
What I think we're going to see moving forward is kind of a combination of things, right? I think, one, there are people that never would have gone to therapy
Yeah.
ever, who are turning to AI and getting additional support, hopefully in a safe and careful
Yeah.
way, but are getting additional support that they probably would never have gotten.
Right.
That's great. I think there are people that are who probably wouldn't have gone to therapy, who are turning to AI, who start working with AI, and in the best possible scenario, start to realize there are some things I can do myself. I need more support for some of this other stuff.
Yeah.
And they turn to therapy because they
Right.
realize, oh, I'm not going to be doing my whole life. These two particular issues I just need support with. It's going to be I know it's going to be short term and temporary, that
Yeah.
feels more financially manageable to me, and I can do that.
Right.
I think also from the flip side, we're going to see therapists using either therapists or clients separately or together using different tools, like using different AI tools as in between session supports. So,
Oh,
right, you're a
sure.
therapist, maybe you have a partner like, with a AI company or something,
Yeah.
or you just figure out a set of prompts or whatever it is. And thanks for giving me that assignment to put together the prompts, because that's clearly a guide that it's not the first time that's been brought out to me. So I need to get cracking on that. So that's
Yes.
on my to-do list now. But so like being able to have in between session support where a client can just say, hey, this came up in therapy this week. This is now how it's playing out in my real life, but it's
Mm.
11 o'clock at night and I can't reach out to anybody. Can you help me kind of move forward?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That is kind of cool. Also, start thinking about activities, um,
Hmm.
things that they can practice. There's
Yeah.
an article that I'm working on where I'm calling it the rehearsal room. So
Ah.
AI, so kind of the flip side of AI, right? On the one side, AI is you have to be incredibly self-aware to deal with AI because of the fact that it feels human
Yeah.
but is not human, right? The way it interacts with us activates our interpersonal circuits, right? So it feels to us like we're dealing with a human. We're just not dealing with
Hmm.
a human. It is not
Hmm.
real. That is part of the effect it has on us.
Yeah.
The flip side of that, kind of the other side of the same coin, is because it activates our interpersonal circuits, because it gets us to feel like we are dealing with
Yeah.
another human being, all of a sudden we have this, what I call rehearsal room, to start thinking about, oh, look at that. I'm deleting what I'm writing because I'm afraid of what AI is going to think about me. I do that with
Mm.
everybody. I am worried
Oh,
about getting
yeah.
their approval. I'm typing a response, and in the moment that it doesn't respond, I'm thinking, is it going to like what I say or not? Right? I do that with every human being on the planet, right?
Love
There's a
it.
whole slew of things. Setting boundaries, right? AI asks you a question. You don't want to answer that question. What do you do? Do you say, or do you just answer the question anyway because they asked and you kind of feel like you have to? Do you set a boundary and say, no, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about this, or
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that. I'm finished, right? It becomes this place, particularly with a trained therapist who can help you think it through and develop
Yeah.
real practice ideas. You can practice with AI because it has no feelings. It's not going to blow up at you.
Right.
There's no risk involved there as long as you're coming at it from a place of self awareness and intentionality. That is one of the things I'm most excited about because I know
Love
I
that.
I practice that all the time. Like I'm a I'm a pretty self-aware guy. It's hard for people to
Yeah.
fathom how self-aware I am sometimes, but so I'm constantly like watching myself. Oh, right, I deleted a word because I was afraid of what it was going to say. Let's write it anyway
Wow.
and let's see how that feels and like be comfortable with that it can feel uncomfortable sometimes to set boundaries, even with a device, a machine, a tool, right? So I think there's that piece of it. I think one of the other advantages where we start thinking about AI in the world of therapy is that sure the documentation stuff, the notes, the transcribing of sessions, all of that kind of stuff, AI can probably handle extremely well, and that can free up therapists so that they either A, if they wanted to, could see more clients, but maybe more importantly, actually have more time to take care of themselves so that they're in better
Mm.
shape for the rest of their clients, right? But another thing that I sort of see happening is that therapists will be ending up working with kind of twofold. The downside is I think therapists are going to be seeing a lot of people who feel kind of addicted to AI.
Mm.
That's going to be a whole realm of work that is
Oof.
some therapists I think will not be happy with at all, right? Like that is not what
Right.
they signed up for, and that's going to be really difficult for them. The
Yeah.
positive side of that is I think because AI is going to be helping people solve some of the less intense problems, that therapists will be working with people who are really interested in doing more trauma recovery work, because that's not what you
Yeah.
can do with
Yeah.
AI. But that's what a good trained therapist can handle, and a good trained therapist is kind of lives in those spaces. And I kind of
Right.
hope that that's part of what happens is there's this freedom to really help people in a more profound way than we have in the past, because AI is essentially kind of doing triage for us. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to think that way, but as an analogy, right? If if people who have lesser issues are going to AI first, and people who have more significant issues in term particularly around childhood trauma are realizing AI is not enough, I need more support, and they're going to therapy, right?
Yeah.
Therapists have a little more room for them, and they'll have a little bit more time and energy to be able to help them.
Yeah.
That's my hope. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong certainly in that
For
scenario because
sure.
AI is involved, and AI is
Yeah.
by its nature a disruptive force, but that's
Oh,
kind of where
yeah.
I
It's a
see
hot
things.
topic. And it's a hot topic. I mean, we're definitely going to have to dive into this pool again because it is
Yes.
such a
Yeah.
it is such a hot topic for people. And I don't know that we don't have a fraction of a clue how to tap into the power. And unfortunately, like the analogy you gave about driving the car, having this, this beautiful
Yeah.
like vehicle that we have no idea how to drive. That's perfect because that's really where we are as humans. Like we have no idea.
Yeah. And I think one thing I try to tell people is that I have some ideas, but anyone that tells you where we're going to be, even in 6 months when it comes to
Uh,
AI, for the
uh,
most part, has no idea, because
uh-uh.
we've never experienced anything like this before. This is
Yeah.
disrupting every single area of our
Yeah.
lives. And we don't know how that's going to play. We don't know what laws are going to be put into place. We don't know what new companies are going to come along that we haven't heard of yet. We don't know so much.
Right.
And
I know.
it's a, I mean, I'm fortunate because I do feel like this is an absolutely fascinating time to be alive, but it
Yeah,
is
it is. Yeah.
also, terrifying because we have no idea what's going to happen. And we just gotta keep, right. Let's bring it all
Oh
back.
man.
We got to keep taking care of ourselves. We got to do the self-care. We got to get connected to ourselves, because that's the only way we're going to get through any time of uncertainty or difficulty.
Yeah, exactly. 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 Yeah, I appreciate that. You said when I asked you, what is the one thing that you want listeners to walk away knowing that if they wanted to heal and grow, that they can? What is the message behind? How do you really convey that? So, like you had said, you want people to know that they can heal and grow, right? What is the message beyond that? Because I think we all know, well, yeah, we can heal and grow. Sure, we can. How? Where? What? Like, what is the message? I mean, because it's a really broad, it's very broad. What would you say your message behind that comment would be?
I think for me, and you've we've talked about it quite a bit, but it's really thinking about what are steps involved in that process, because I think it's too it's too
Yeah,
difficult to sit around and think, oh, what could I possibly do to change my life? And when someone says, of course you can change your life, it's like, yeah, but
right,
how do
right,
I actually do that?
right.
And I don't have a 10-step checklist, but what I do is fundamentally this. One, we start with what you're trying to figure out, right? What is it that you're looking at changing, and how realistic is that, right? I mean, if someone comes in and says, "Hey, I want to be 6 inches taller," I'm not going to be able to help with that.
Yeah,
That's not going to
yeah,
be my strength. But
yeah.
if you say, "Hey, I would really like to be able to stop doing this particular behavior," right? Then, okay, let's first of all, maybe let's not even set the goal to stop it. Let's first be aware when it happens and be able to do something about it to change it.
Yeah, yeah.
Realistic goals, I think, are crucial. And not because I don't think people can do it, but because I don't think we should be setting ourselves up for failure. We should be setting ourselves up for success.
Yeah.
The first part is understanding what you actually want to change. What does that look like? Right?
Right.
Not just a
Right.
theoretical, I'd like to be a better person, but here are some specific behaviors or thought processes I'd like to change. And the reasons why I'd like to change them is because I want to get to this
Right.
place. If we
Yeah.
don't have a vision, and I don't mean like a dream, I mean like an actual idea of what life could look like for us without
Yeah.
the thing that we're struggling with, it's hard to keep our eyes focused on getting there. So
Yeah.
that's the whole goal part of it is the first part. And then, frankly, I always start with self-care because no, I've never met anybody that does enough self-care.
Right.
So you start with self-care because self-care, one, the reality is when we're trying to change behaviors about ourselves, when we're facing some stuff from our past, life gets harder before it gets easier.
Yeah.
Learning self-care skills, learning self-care activities, practicing it helps prepare everybody for that experience,
Yeah.
but also is a lifelong tool that you're going to use forever, right? So there's that. Then there's how do we start learning about self and how do we start learning about parts? Because I think the IFS model is so incredible, particularly when
Yeah.
we're thinking about change. So what does self look like to you? Can you think of something you've done over the last few weeks where you just felt genuinely good, where you felt calm, where you felt creative, whatever it happens to be, and help them to see, oh, you're already connecting to self. It's just that there are all these other moments in your life where parts have taken over. How can we help
Yeah.
know when parts have taken over and how to reconnect to self? And that's what we do. And then it really gets to the work of like, oh, here's a specific example from my week where something strange happened. And we talk about how, oh, look, that was a part. What was that part saying? How is it trying to protect you? What could we say to that part to help it feel better? Right? Then we get into like the nitty gritty, so to speak. But that's how
Yeah.
it starts. It starts with a goal. It starts with
Yeah.
self-care. It starts with figuring out what self is and what self sounds like, and then thinking about parts work and all of that.
I love that. I love that. And you know what really struck me? I love that it's not only about the goal. Why is that important to you?
Yeah.
Like that is really, I really love that. That is super important. Otherwise it's like an untethered goal, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason why we
Right.
have that goal.
And
Um,
you need to be able to know also when you've achieved it.
right.
Because otherwise we're just going to be like, I don't want to work with someone forever, right? Sure, that
Right.
would be great for my financial resources, but it's not,
Yeah.
I'm not, the purpose is to help you through whatever period you're going through, and then you go and
Yeah.
do your thing. And if something else comes
Yeah.
up and you want to come back and talk to me, great. I'm not going anywhere. But the purpose is not for us to
Yeah.
have a long-standing relationship. It's
Right.
we're going to focus on something that you want to change. I'm going to give you skills and be able to do that. You're going to make those changes, and then you're going to move on to whatever's next in your life, right? Like,
Love it.
so if you don't know what it looks like to achieve the goal, you won't know that you've reached it.
Correct.
And
Exactly. That's a measure of success,
yeah,
right? How will we know we've got there? Oh
right.
my God. Oh, amazing. Amazing. What an incredible conversation with you. And I could, every time you and I talk, like, I feel
Yeah.
like we could go on for like 8 hours. So,
Yeah, and I
um,
feel like we just covered so many things we
I
haven't even
know.
talked about yet. And I was like, well, that was great. We could go on for more.
We really could. We really, really could. And I was serious when we were talking about your journey from California to New York. Like, I am so incredibly stoked for you. That is going to be amazing. And thank you for sharing that with people, because I have found myself that when I am traveling and I do share it, so many people appreciate it. There's folks that may not be able to see the things that we
Yeah.
can see, and we're sharing it, and that it's just such a big deal. It opens up doors that some may never have even realized were there. So I'm really excited to be plugging in. And I think I might have to like get in my car and accidentally run across your roadmap. Because that would be like so super cool.
That would be.
I'm really excited for you.
I
to
appreciate
have that journey. It's amazing. You know, so how is it that people can connect? I'm going to drop all your information in here for sure, but how can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, the best way to find me right now is buildonyourstrength.com. That's my website. And from there, you can see it's probably worth checking me out on LinkedIn, particularly if you're interested in AI mental health stuff, because that's where all of my writing goes, posts about it, things like that. Excuse me. And then if you are interested in following my what looks to be a 50-day journey from California to New York, I will probably be posting that on LinkedIn, and I have a Facebook page, which I will share the link with you with, and
Awesome.
Instagram as well. And so, if that's something you want to just watch me travail across this country, I'd be
That's
happy to have you.
awesome. Oh my God, I can't wait to see you go viral. This is great. Oh man, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate everything that you've brought to our
Thank you. This
table.
was
Thank
fabulous.
you.
Such a
Absolutely.
good time.
All right, very good. Have a great day. Hang on
Thanks.
for
You too.
1 second here. All right, thanks.